Nisboere word met trots geborg deur Laveld Agrochem en JAC Motors. Mount Joy Farms, gestig in 1899 in Stellenbosch. Die plaas spesialiseer in prime variëteite en kombineer meer as 'n eeu se ervaring met moderne omgewingsvriendelike boerdery en etiese arbeidspraktyke.
My grandfather is originally from Denmark, but he immigrated to Kenya after the war and was a big game hunter there. And the money that he made from big game hunting eventually bought his own farm in the highlands. And he farmed that for probably the next 20 years. And after independence, they decided that, well, they actually had a choice. They could either immigrate to Canada, Australia, or South Africa, but they didn't want to leave Africa. So my grandfather decided to immigrate down to South Africa. So that's when he bought Mount Joy. And when he bought the farm, we had various crops such as apples, pears, plums, cherries, but also livestock. And my grandfather did that for a few years. And when he passed, my grandmother took it over. My father decided to take it over and run it as a side business. He's actually an advocate by trade, but we wanted to keep the family legacy going in some capacity. And I sort of got involved in the family business about 5 years ago. So on this farm in particular, we have 15 varieties, such as African Rose, Black Splendor, Ruby Dawn, and those tend to do very well in the export market in particular. But they are a bit harder to farm than sort of the mid and the late season varieties, because the early season varieties, you don't have a lot of time to grow the actual fruit. So you need to manage the cultivation of those crops very, very well, like in season. The last 5 of the 2 seasons I've been here, wind has probably taken off like 20% of our crop. And it's not just like blowing fruit off the trees, it's the damage that is caused like on the tree itself. So rub marks are a big problem with plums, and rub marks essentially are caused when the fruit is rubbing against, either the leaves or other parts of the tree. So that's a big problem. I mean, in some years we've lost, I think it was in 2020 when I first joined the business, we lost about half our crop to wind. And that's sort of been resolved now, because it's a combination of planting earlier cultivars, because generally we find that, especially in this area in Stellenbosch, the most significant wind we end up getting in January, February. And especially with our early cultivars, we harvest towards the end of December. So we sort of like skip that externality. We run quite an extensive foliar program, and I guess farming is all about timing and making sure that you're on it with irrigation, with foliar feeds, with fertilizer. So I think Robert and I run quite a tight ship, so that allows us to produce the best quality we can.
Well, we basically use Agrotech Innovation. They've helped us a lot. They did our soil monitoring and soil science samples this year. And then we get in a program, we take the soil samples and then we look at them, and then we see that they look at them as well, and they see that there's an imbalance of calcium or imbalance of nitrogen in the soil. And then they say, okay, apply so much, so they help us that way. And also with the nematode analysis, they're also helping us with that, because we've got a few blocks that have infested with nematodes. Now they're also a big problem as a fruit farmer, because the trees grow, they don't just die. But the only way you can see them is if you have the soil analyzed and they have a look at the soil and they see how many nematodes are in it, which ones are harmful and which ones aren't harmful. Our turnaround is fairly short, because our early varieties, they flower, and we actually pick them at the end of November, 28th of November comes the African Rose, and then it follows on. We plant different varieties. As Mark said, we plant 15 different varieties, all aimed at getting to the different markets. We've got the early varieties that go into early market, mid-season varieties, and then the end-of-season varieties. Obviously, you command a premium with the early varieties and the late-season varieties, because there's no fruit in the market. And the mid-season varieties are there because you need to have something to keep you going. So we plant them strategically so we have enough to pick in that window for each window, so keep the guys going. Because the worst thing to do with a contract team is you start to build up a relationship with them, and then you've got to let them go home for a week or two, and in that time a whole bunch of them go off and find other work.
So if you look at our farm in particular, we export about 90% of what we produce, and the other 10% goes for local. It is quite difficult having like a monocrop to manage cash flow, because we essentially only get paid 4 months after our fruit has been shipped out. So there is quite a high demand for like working capital in a business like this. And to diversify, we do like long-term rentals and short-term rentals. At the moment, we have a single house which we Airbnb for like short-term rentals, and then we have about 7 houses on the farm, which we've sort of renovated over the years to provide additional income, and those are our long-term tenants. So that'll supplement the income just from the fruits itself. Also, we have a pack house located on the other side of Mountjoy, which we pack a lot of fruit for Boschendal, we pack a lot of fruit for Lawrenceford, particularly plums. But I mean, that pack line is set up mostly to pack our own fruit, but also outside growers, like any stone fruit. I mean, we're packing pomegranates at the moment. And that'll all help supplement the farm's actual income.
It's hard work. Don't think that you can just come into farming, but it's very rewarding. You got to find rewarding and self-fulfillment out of the small things. You got to enjoy seeing bees pollinate flowers. You've got to enjoy knowing that you gave water and now the tree's growing. You've got to enjoy the small things, not just the big things. Financially, it can be very rewarding if you get it right, but it takes a lot of hard work.
Nisboere word met trots geborg deur Laveld Agrochem en JAC Motors.